Hello all, in today's session we are going to discuss concurrent execution in database management system. Firstly, what is concurrent execution? It refers to the simultaneous execution of more than one transaction. So for example, if there are multiple users who would like to access the database at the same time, same database accessed by multiple users at the same time, then that can be known as what? Concurrent execution. For example, we will take a railway reservation system. Railway reservation system database. Now, there may exist multiple users who would like to access this same database at the same time for different transactions. Some of the users may try to book a ticket. Some of the users may try to cancel a ticket. So likewise, there may be different transactions taken place on the same database at the same time. So with this, we can say that there are advantages and disadvantages when concurrent executions takes place. So what are the advantages we can have is we can achieve high throughput. Throughput is nothing but the number of transactions that are taken place in an even interval of time. As database management system allows concurrent execution of transactions, we can be able to achieve this high throughput and efficient resource utilization. So transactions may require CPU or input-output devices to be used for multiple times. So thereby, we can say that here the resource utilization is also high. As CPU is used for processing the transactions or executing the instructions, so whenever a transaction is executed, there is a high utilization of CPU as a resource. It also introduces the potential for conflicts and data inconsistency. So not only the advantages that we have with the concurrent execution of transactions, it may sometimes lead to several conflicts, thereby it in turn leads to data inconsistencies in the database. Let us see what kind of conflicts we may face when multiple transactions execute concurrently with each other. Firstly, we have lost update problem. Lost update problem is also known as WW conflict, which is write-write conflict. When this lost update problem will occur, that is, one transaction's update would be overwritten by the another. If multiple transactions are taking place at the same time, then one transaction, if it is under the process, at the same time, if another transaction is overwriting the execution of another transaction, then in that case, write-write conflict may occur. We all know that the transactions will be taken place with two major operations, that is read operation, right? And another is write operation. When read operation is performed, then it does not affect the database. It is only used for reading the instructions. And when write operation is performed, then it is going to write to the database. That means it makes changes to the database. Now let us see this example and try to understand what is write-write conflict when it is going to happen. Here we have transaction T1 and transaction T2. Under transaction T1, assume that there is an account A and this T1 transaction has performed read operation on account A. At time interval 1, transaction T1 entered and it has initiated the read operation on account A and found that 1000 rupees is available. Clear? And then at time interval T2, transaction T1 would like to credit some amount of 500 rupees to account A. So this process is still happening. Okay, right operation is not made. That means that this particular 500 rupees is not yet credited to account A. It is under the process. Meanwhile, at time interval T3, T2 transaction has entered and it is reading the account A. Though we have transferred some amount of 500 rupees to this account A, as write operation is not performed, For T2, it is shown still 1000 rupees. Clear. Now at time interval 4, when T1 transaction performed a write operation, 1500 balance is updated to the account A. Okay. Now T2 transaction would like to credit some amount of 500 rupees to account A. Clear. So, but what happens? Here the write operation for account A is already finished. Before this write operation performs, as read operation is made by T2 and amount of 500 is added to account A, and later on T2 performed write of A operation. So for T2, it is showing 1500. But what is the actual amount that is to be updated to account A? It must be 2000 because 500 once it is credited by T1 transaction. T2 also have credited 500 rupees into the same account. Clear. So why this kind of mismatch has been occurred? One transaction has overwritten the execution of another transaction. And this is known as what? Lost update problem. Next is temporary inconsistency, or it is also known as dirty read problem. In other words, you can call it as WR conflict, which is write read conflict. So what is write read conflict? One transaction might read an inconsistent state of data that's being updated by the another. Let us see the example and understand what is dirty read problem. Here we have two transactions. Assume that these two transactions are concurrently being executed. Time interval T1, assume that T1 transaction has entered and performed read operation on account A and found that 1000 rupees is available in account A. Meanwhile, at T2 time interval, T1 has credited some amount of 500 rupees to account A. Clear. And then at time interval T3, the amount is also updated in the database, and thereby now the account contains how much? 1500 rupees. At this time interval 3, there is no other transaction has been taken place. But at time interval 4, assume that T2 transaction has entered and performed read operation on account A. As write operation is already made, the account is updated with 500 rupees and it shows 1500 rupees per transaction T2. At time interval T5, and this T2 transaction has also made a commit. Commit indicates what? Successful execution of the transaction. Due to some internal failures, assume that this T1 transaction is rolled back. Rollback means what? After performing the write operation on account A, T1 transaction should also make a commit. It does not indicate any commit. Some failures has been occurred and the transaction is rolled back. So then what happens? Here, one transaction might read an inconsistent state, as this T1 has not entered to a commit state. Before entering into the commit state, as T2 transaction has entered and read the account A, we can say that this leads to an inconsistent state of data. This kind of conflict is known as write-read conflict. Coming to unrepeatable read problem, and it is also known as what? Read-write conflict. Let us know what is read-write conflict. When a single transaction reads the same row multiple times and observes different values each time. This occurs because another concurrent transaction has modified the row between the two reads. Let us understand this with this table. Here we have two transactions again. Assume that they are executing at the same time. T1 transaction performed read operation at time interval T1 and found 1000 rupees is available in account A. And at T2 time interval, T2 transaction has entered and performed read operation on account A and it found that 1000 rupees is available in account T. Right? And immediately at time interval T3, T2 transaction has taken place and it has debited some amount of 500 rupees from account A. Okay, and also performed write operation, thereby the remaining amount 500 rupees is stored in the database. Clear? So this happens at which time interval? At time interval 4. And before T2 performs a commit, T1 at time interval T5 performs read operation on the same account. So previously at time interval T1, 1000 rupees is shown to T1. At time interval T5, 500 rupees is shown. So why this happens? This occurs because another concurrent transaction has modified the row between the two reads. Between these two reads, T2 transaction has modified the account. To overcome these problems, concurrency control mechanism is used. Okay, concurrency control mechanism. This is one kind of component in transaction, or it is a mechanism which is mainly used for avoiding such kind of problems. This is mainly used to allow concurrent execution of transactions as well as to maintain consistency in the database. Thank you.